Hey, AP Worlders. Here's part one of commerce and culture. Alright, here's a good map that shows commerce and culture during the post-classical era. Alright, first we get the Mediterranean Sea trade, Trans-Sahara trade across the Sahara Desert, Indian Ocean trade, Silk Road trade, we get the Mesoamerica trade, and the Andes trade. And during this era, the speed of the transactions are going to increase. But the exchanges among distant people is not a new thing. All right, so trade's not new, but the speed of it's going to be what's going to be new. And this speed is going to be from the use of animals such as camels and horses, but also boats. But the uneven distribution of goods and resources causes this trade, is going to motivate this long distance trade, this uneven distribution of goods, not only within particular civilizations or regions, but among them as well. During this era, trade became more important than ever before, linking and shaping distant societies and people. For the most part, it was an indirect or a chain of trade, meaning one merchant would travel to one area, give to another merchant, that merchant would take it to another area. All right, it wasn't one person traveling all along the whole trade route. Why was trade important? Economically, it was important because it altered consumption and shaped daily life of people. All right, so people were able to consume new food and their daily lives changed. It caused people to specialize in producing certain goods. It diminished the self-sufficiency of people, and now merchants became a separate social group. Merchant people, though, were often mistrusted because they didn't actually produce anything themselves. Long-distance trade also enabled elites to distinguish themselves from commoners by having goods from far distances. Trade also affected political life. Wealth available from controlling and taxing trade motivated and enabled the creation of states. Trade became a vehicle for the spread of religious ideas, technology, disease, plants and animals to regions far from where they originated. Buddhism would spread this way from India through Asia, and Islam would cross the Sahara Desert into West Africa. Now we're going to look at our land-based trade in Afro-Eurasia, which was the Silk Road. Like I said, it was land-based route that linked pastoral and agricultural people as well as large civilizations. Pastoral people still did a lot of the middleman work of traveling the goods from one agricultural people to the other. None of these participants really knew how large it was because they would relay the trade. Silk Road prospered the most when there were large, powerful states to provide security for the merchants and travelers. So when Rome and Han China were there during the classical era, the trade expanded. When the Mongols ruled the area, trade expanded. The Silk Road mostly traded luxury goods, destined for elites, rather than staple goods. The reason they mostly traded luxury goods was because it was a high cost of transportation going by land across the Silk Road. So they needed high items of value to make it worth this land trade. China focused on silk, gunpowder, paper, mirrors, to name a few. Central Asia focused on furs, up here, Central Asia. They focused on furs, horses, livestock. India would focus on cotton textiles, precious stones, and spices. The Middle East would focus on dried fruit and dyes. The Mediterranean focused on gold coins, glassware, wool, linen textiles, and olive oil. But this focus on luxury goods limited its direct impact on most people. But some peasants would change their agricultural focus to producing these luxury goods. The Silk Road, more importantly than exchanging goods, also exchanged culture. Buddhism in particular, as many merchants came to be fond of Buddhism. There were monasteries that would be created along the way in Southeast Asia, East Asia, and South Asia that would provide convenient and familiar places for them to rest and resupply. The original faith of Buddhism didn't like the material world. However, as the Silk Road trade expanded, they changed their stance on that, and some of the Buddhists became very wealthy. Disease spread also on the trade routes. Smallpox and measles during the classical era, which hurt Rome and Han when we did the collapse of those dynasties, right? Talking about disease. And then towards the end of this era, right, we get the bubonic plague or Black Death that's going to spread because of the Mongol rule and all the advanced trade. Because the Mongols, the safety, the bubonic plague is going to spread easily. It's going to be carried by fleas on rats. And that's going to destroy much of Europe's population during this era. But the good news for Europe is it's going to give the serfs more rights, because now there's going to be less and less serfs under feudalism, because there's so many are going to die that they're going to be able to demand more rights, which basically kind of ends the feudal societies. The results of this increase in trade led to unprecedented concentrations of wealth and large cross-cultural exchange. New innovations in transportation, state policies, and mercantile practices contributed to this expansion and development of commercial networks. Pastoral and nomadic groups played a key role in creating and sustaining these networks. Expanding networks created greater interregional borrowing while keeping regional diversity. Trade resulted from and stimulated increase in productive capacity, with implications on social and gender structures, such as merchant class and women's rights. Like as we saw in Korea, how women's rights declined because of their trade with China. Productivity in agriculture and industry also is going to rise as a result of this trade. The rise in production is going to lead to population growth and urbanization. But it's also going to cause environmental resources to strain. All right, so that's part one of this commerce and culture. All right, part two will cover the other trade routes.